Between 2009 and 2012, the murder rate in America dropped by 1,459 murders per year. Of these murders, about 60% were committed using some type of firearm. The violent crime rate in America is less than 1% per capita. Out of 100,000 people, crimes will be committed against about 363 of them. The murder rate and violent crime rate are things that everyone recognizes need to be fixed, and this has set off numerous debates over the effectiveness of gun control, with some stating that more gun control would help reduce both rates. These people like to maintain the claim that more guns causes more violent crime. An article published on motherboard.vice.com argues that a recent study proves that rates of gun ownership correlate to rates of crime. The article claims the rate of gun ownership does not correlate positively with lower crime rates. This means that, according to the article, as gun ownership increases, crime would also increase. The article closes with a mocking statement of "Cue the cries that the United States can't be compared with any other countries." Now, while it is possible that removing guns would help lower the number of crimes committed with a gun, removing guns will not reduce the number of violent crimes, which is what matters. If gun-related crimes drop, but knife-related crimes soar to match or exceed the decrease in gun-related crimes, then nothing has been accomplished. Violent crime is caused by a disease plaguing society, and gun control is simply a mask for the symptoms, not a cure for said disease. Through cross-country analysis, comparison of rural, suburban, and urban settings, they look at the use of guns for good, and a direct refutation of the idea that there is a correlation between gun ownership and gun violence, this will be shown. Reducing only gun-related crime is not a solution. It's more of a feel-good book meant to distract from the real problem. Calling a decrease in gun crime a success while crime rates don't change is like calling a ban on soda a success while obesity rates remain the same. The Swiss have a gun ownership rate of 45.7 guns per 100 people, which gives them the fourth highest gun ownership rate in the world. As can be seen in the graphs provided on screen, the two countries with the highest gun ownership rate actually have the lowest violent crime rates. France is close, but gun-free England is a haven for crime at a violent crime rate of over 4 times higher than any other listed country. To further explore the idea that less guns leads to a higher violent crime rate, it is worth exploring the relationship between violent crime and gun ownership across rural, urban, and suburban locations. The FBI has a breakdown of crime based on metropolitan cities or urban locations, cities outside metropolitan cities, more suburban locations, and non-metropolitan areas or more rural locations. As can be observed in the displayed graph, there is a negative correlation between violent crime rates and the number of guns owned. As per capita gun ownership increases, per capita violent crime decreases. This suggests that maybe, just maybe, there is something other than guns at fault for violent crime. While the idea is spread about that personal defense guns put a victim of a crime in more danger, this is simply not true. Criminologists Gary Kleck and Jong-Yun Park concluded that guns used in self-defense reduce the risk of property damage or injury to the victim, and that just 10% of reported incidents of self-defense with a gun resulted in an injury. Given that statistic and the statistics displayed on screen, it is quite evident that guns are an asset for would-be victims. It is also very important to look at how many times guns are used for personal defense. While the number is not actually known with certainty, it is estimated that every year 400,000 people would be dead without their guns for self-defense. That means that while an average of just over 13,000 murders occurred each year since 2008, well over 10 times that many murders were stopped because of guns. That provides a pretty clear answer to the question, do guns do more harm than good? No, they do not. They do infinitely more good because that number of 400,000 is just murders that were stopped with a gun. Criminologist Gary Kleck estimates that around 2.5 million Americans use their guns for self-defense every year. In 2014, there were 51,398 gun-related crimes, including 12,526 deaths. 51,000 gun-related crimes compared to 2.5 million instances of self-defense with a gun is very telling. The number of successful gun crimes is barely over 1/8 of the estimated number of killings stopped with a gun. The total number of successful gun-related crimes is equal to 2.04% of the crimes stopped with a gun. Proponents of gun control like to call this number highly inflated from the real number, despite numerous professors and criminologists citing this as a valid estimate. In addition to Gary Kleck, Professor Emeritus Wilson of the University of California, Los Angeles stated that the number may be as high as 2.5 or 3 million. It's quite clear that guns are used far more often to stop crimes than to commit them. Finally, while I've shown that there does appear to be a correlation between gun ownership and violent crime, there is no correlation between gun ownership and gun crime. Gary Cluck took 41 studies to investigate the relationship between gun ownership and gun crime and applied 3 criteria, as shown on screen, to them. In the end, Cluck found no statistically significant relationship between gun ownership and gun crime rates. The overall pattern is very clear. The more methodologically adequate research is, the less likely it is to support the more guns, more crime hypothesis, Cluck remarked. The issue that needs to be fixed is the cause of the crime, not the manner in which the crime is committed. Throughout this video, ample evidence has been provided to show that guns do not lead to more crime, and that they are, in fact, used far more often to prevent crime than to commit crime. There have been numerous studies performed to look for a correlation between gun ownership and gun crime, when in reality there is no correlation to be found. If we want to fix the crime problem as a nation, we need to stop arguing with each other over something that has only helped hold the crime rate down and instead focus on finding a real cure.